Hey guys, out here in the desert, forgive my casual attire, sitting here, just had a great workout. I'm looking out at the desert landscape, eating my breakfast burrito, and just had like a sudden burst of inspiration to talk about this notion of what it means to have a negative entity attached to you in your field. This is something I hear about a lot from people in the spiritual community. Like either you were born kind of with an entity attached to you, or an entity entered your field, or someone you're afraid you picked up an entity from someone else. This is like a big conversation I often hear in the spiritual community. Um, this fear that a negative, draining entity that's not mine has attached itself to me, and it's blocking me and it's blocking my flow. What do I do? What do I do? How do I get rid of it? But then it's usually accompanied by um, this feeling of um, this sort of manic race to find like the healer or the practitioner who's going to, be the one to heal you. So let me sort of say a few things about how I regard this, and I think that this should be of relief to you, and it should shift you from feeling like a victim of bad entity mojo to a more empowered co-creator of your life and your circumstances. Here's the thing, anyone who's sort of in spiritual dialogue, pretty much we're all in agreement. We're constantly creating our own reality, right? Our unconscious and our conscious selves are in co-creation with the universe to create the circumstances, places, people, and events that are going to serve our highest healing, our highest teaching, our highest transformation. So here's the thing. Let's just say, for example, an entity has attached itself to you. And let's say it's not your entity. Let's say someone had bad feelings towards you and took their bad entity and put it onto you. Okay? Even if that's true, on some fundamental level, some part of you is manifesting that. Just like you're manifesting all the different relationships in your life, just like you're manifesting, the income that's coming in or the income that's not coming in, or, the teacher who suddenly arrived, we are constantly manifesting what's in our field. So if there is a negative entity that isn't yours, that's draining you in your field, I would argue that there is some unconscious part of you that is seeking to be drained. There is some unconscious part of you that is seeking to have a reason for your life force to not be fully flowing. And I would go a step further in saying there is some part of you that is getting off on the adrenaline rush of worrying about this and of being in a mad race to find the exact right healer. And I also would argue that even if you found this magical healer who removed this entity, it probably wouldn't solve the problem, because the problem is actually the vibration and the frequency you are at right now, worrying about this negative entity and victimizing yourself in relationship to this negative entity. So what I want to say to you is, yes, if there is a negative entity attaching itself to you, I would work on this in the same way that I would work on anything else that is manifesting in your life that is unpleasant for you, which is ownership of what you are co-creating. If there is a part of me that has manifested this, what part of me is that? What part of me wants this negative entity here? What is the payoff for me to have this negative entity? What is the payoff for me to have this excuse, this built-in excuse for me to victimize myself and not step into my highest and greatest good? And I swear to you, if you work with the negative entity and the presence of the negative entity on that level, the level of self-responsibility, instead of the level of self-victimization, that perfect healer that you need is going to materialize. That process that you need to get rid of the entity is going to materialize. Hell, maybe the entity will just go away by itself because your frequency and your vibration has changed. So please, this is the kind of thing where people, I think this is the kind of thing where people get so skeptical about the spiritual community, because there's a way in which we can use the language to bypass true accountability, self-responsibility, and self-empowerment. There's a way we can use the language to victimize ourselves, to make ourselves special, to blame other people. This is what's referred to as spiritual bypassing. If there truly is a negative entity in your field, it's because on some level it is working for you and your system to have a negative entity in your field. And rather than looking outside yourself and racing like a chicken with its head cut off to try to find an outside answer where you can blame someone else, see what happens when you work on it at the level of self-responsibility, self-creation. What part of me wants this? Just like anything else in your life. Okay, guys, I hope this was helpful. Bye.